Hey guys, I wanted to do a Golf Clash video for you. This is going to be for the golden shot here. I wanted to kind of show you how I would approach this if you needed to still do your shot. I'm sure a lot of you might have already taken it with the holidays and everything. I just didn't get around to getting to this yet. I have seen the hole. I've seen some shots on this. And I kind of have a take on it that I kind of like as an approach. First, for starters, you see up here the wind, it's going to be 5 to 8 miles per hour in any given direction. So if you were to go to the golden shot bag here and you went to your long iron, let's look at the accuracy. So you got 66 accuracy, which is going to be roughly 1.7 per ring. Now, you are a little bit shorter than max distance. If I remember the way that this is going to set up, you're a little bit in on that, but you're shooting to a downward elevation. So typically, to a downhill elevation, you would want to take off rings, and when you or take off from whatever the total is of rings that you're like yards per ring. So let's say it's the 1.7 number. Well, you might want to come in 1.5ish, but since you're not quite on max club, you might want to come in. It's probably almost going to be a wash. I'd probably kind of stick to 1.6, 1.65, somewhere in there. Since you're not quite pushing max, but you're shooting to a downward elevation, I think more or less you're gonna, pretty much be spot on that 1.6, 1.7 number anyway. So not a lot's gonna change on that because the two just kind of cancel each other out. Since you're not quite on max distance, like you would typically go up on your number, like instead of say 1.7, maybe you'd adjust 1.9 here, 1.8. But since you got to come down for shooting to a downward elevation, well, that's going to bring it back another, the other direction. Since it's going to be higher, longer in the air, longer, it's going to be affected by more wind, so you'll lower that number. So it looks here like pretty much for the most part you're looking at very similar chests to what you're used to. The only thing to notice here is it looks like your prize is going to be for snow globes. So let's see if I can't get a couple shots here. Just wanted to give you a rough idea here. Now, the first thing I like to do is I like to put it kind of where it's going to be, kind of into the green somewhere, and then I'm going to do whatever the wind is, I'm going to try to counter it. So you see how on this one the wind is, you see how it's to the pointing left to right here, and again, using that number that I was mentioning, this is probably going to be like a 4 or 5 ring adjustment. So I'll just push it up here towards the top of the fairway, and then I'm still probably going to just counter it just a little bit here. And let's see if I can't get this coming nope, and it looks like I overcorrected. So not the best first start because I didn't hit that side hill. So I'm assuming, well, you know what, it might have been the angle that I pulled back as well. It might not quite have been the right angle. So that's okay. Let's try to learn from that one. That's probably the hardest wind that they could give me, pointed that direction. So I'm going to go ahead and do 6 more balls for you. And I'd assume I should be able to avoid doing that again. I think more so than anything, I might have had that pointed not quite in the right direction. I didn't pull it back far enough more than anything. All these other winds should be, that's probably as hard as a wind as you can see on this one. And again, I'll probably pull, straight back here. Just have a touch side spin going. And again, for this, maybe I'll do You know, right around 3 rings here for a 6. And let's see what that does. And there it's hopping up. Looks like it's just coming up short here. But not too bad. It was just coming up just a tad bit short. You see I did much better with my alignment there. I got it to that innermost ring on the first try. And all I did was just a little bit of counter spin to the right. I don't want to get too much right. And one of the biggest reasons that you don't want to get too much right there is because that right is going to prevent it from rolling down the hill quite as much. So you want to try to avoid doing too much right spin on that. But you just want to kind of get your groove, and when it's into the wind like this, the thing to remember, and again, remember how I mentioned, I'm just kind of looking for the best spot that's just going to kind of be right into where the arc is kind of the highest. And I'm going to counter this way since the wind's pointed the other direction, and I won't take off nearly as much either. I'm only going to take off one backspin here, as opposed to what you just saw, which was 2, because this wind is gonna want to stop my ball for me. So I'll only go just a little bit as much. Again, I'll probably just counter it just a little bit extra, just to give it that extra momentum it might want. And it looks like I got this one coming in too hot. So, you know, this hole can be a little tough, a little touchy with your land zone, and you just got to kind of be very precise with your movements. Because if you hit too much of that downhill, look, it looks like I did there, which means I probably overcorrected just slightly. Look at that, a couple Cataclysm cards. Could have used a better ring for Cataclysms. So let's see if I can't get at least those last 2 and maybe the hole-in-one on this to very end this video. Okay, so now we're getting back to this other wind that I was telling you that's going to be a little bit challenging. Just by the way that it's pointed, you're going to have to be very precise. So again, I'm going to counter it back to the left, just to kind of counter that wind. I'm definitely going to take off 2 rings here. Just a shade over 2 rings. And then this time, I'm going to be a little bit more cautious with the way that I'm pulling back. So I'm going to pull back towards the tee more so than pulling outward, because I think that's kind of where I went wrong before. So I'm going to pull more back towards the tee this time here, instead of pulling like kind of straight towards the side. And let's see if I can't get this coming in at a good speed. It looked pretty good, but just a little deep. So I just needed maybe just a little bit more backspin. So again, you're kind of seeing how the varying backspin comes into play here, because there I did at least 2 and 2 1/4. It's still deep, versus where I did just 1 on that one that was straight in the face, and they kind of went to about the same zone. So it just kind of shows you how much variance that you get in between there. So let's see if I can't get these last 2 out of the last 3 shots. And again, a side wind. These are more or less the easier ones to play here. And again, you see what I'm doing with my arc? I'm just getting it to where it seems to want to pop up the highest. And that's kind of where I'm using as my groove. Now this one, I'll just counter back just a touch, just to the right. And again, I'll do kind of the same with my backspin. And it seems like this way is the best way. And since this is into the wind, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to rotate just ever so slightly extra to where that I'm pulling to where it's down more towards the hole. So that means I'm taking off basically like extra. And that's kind of what you want to see with these shots here. Let's see if that's going to run out. It might be a little short. Yep, it's short. That's too much of a correction in terms of, and might have just took off just a little bit too much being straight into the wind there. So, but it's all about your hop too. I mean, you see how when I move on the fairway, some hops are really high, some are kind of more dead, just by the way that you pull it. So you have to be very precise, and that's why I'm mentioning that I like to get it where it's popping up quite a bit here, like this, where it has more of an arc. And again, I'll do like my 2 1/4, and with the way this wind is, I'm not really going to do too much side spin here. I want to be very careful. And then I'll just do about 3 rings here, more or less. Come on in there, good. Not quite. Oh, wow. That was deep. Again, you see, and this can be very touchy. Let's see if in this last one I can't just get in here again tight. I started off well, but have not been able to find the groove on this one. It can be a little tricky here to just get that landing zone just right. Again, I'm probably going to go right on 2. Maybe just a touch of counter back to the right. Ever so slightly. Right about 4 rings here. And it looks like it's ever so slightly short. Ah, such a heartbreak. Just barely too much. So you see it can be a little touchy. Getting the hole in one here, you know, there's going to be a lot of luck factor here involved because of how you just see that ever so slightly moving your aim point causes the trajectory to change significantly. So to get this ace, everything has to be aligned perfectly. Everything has to just come together just right to get this one to go in the hole. It's a little unfortunate that I couldn't get that crimson because I was able to you know, hit it inside there with the other gold chest on like one of my first attempts, and then couldn't replicate that shot. It's all about the bounces on this one, and you know, especially getting that hole in one. There's going to be a lot of luck factor that comes into this because of just how many variables are coming into play. So consider the wind, consider the extra side spin, consider the way that, you know, just landing on that fairway within a yard or two, or even half a yard, changes the trajectory and the angle that the ball launches. So you got to factor in the fairway, you got to factor in the wind, and then of course the green as well. The way that it lands on the green is going to vary too. So you got to be very precise on everything, or, you know, just be very lucky on this one. So I don't recommend getting too carried away. If you can't get the hole in one, I'd be, you know, pretty satisfied with just getting, you know, the other 4 chests. You can do it on 6 balls. There's no real concern for me to, you know, keep pressing here. It would have been nice to get the Obsidian chest, but just not the way that it went, and I'll just have to live with that one. So good luck on your golden shot, guys, and I hope that you can find some kind of, you know, lucky bounce, or find some kind of method that gets you in there tight consistently. But the one thing that you want to avoid is the kind of where I hit on that first one. You know, it was too high up on the hill. So, and that has to do with like being an overcorrect. So you don't want it to, you know, take off all that trajectory. You need to be landing on that spot where that trajectory is still a high enough arc to bring it onto the green. So keep that in mind, and you know, that's where you just want to put it, just where it's starting to curl down to the right. Is kind of right in the groove that you want this one. So good luck with this one, guys, and I hope you guys get some good cards from this.